I think, we're not going to go directly to Star Trek. We have to figure out faster than light travel and all of that. The AIs might help with that. But what you are going to get is to a much larger population that is much more tapped into their human potential. And I think that affects every other dimension of society. There was a education researcher back in the 80s, Benjamin Bloom, a lot of folks have heard of him. And in 1984, he published what he called the 2 sigma problem. If a student has one-on-one tutoring, that you can actually see a 2 standard deviation improvement on the student's results. And in education research, if you have even a 1/5 of a standard deviation improvement, it's considered a big deal. But now generative AI technology gives a potential to actually give a very robust tutor to every student. And I'd argue a better than average tutor to every student. If you're able to give every learner on the planet a personal tutor, essentially what Alexander the Great had with Aristotle, you can now scale to billions. If you're able to give every caring adult, a teacher, parent, a teaching assistant, ways to support their students, you're going to address Benjamin Bloom's 2 sigma problem. And so that means that students that today think that quantum physics or calculus or programming a computer or writing a great novel is beyond them, they will find these things intuitive. And it's not just about learning the math, it's all about tapping into their potential. If they're able to do that, you're going to be able to dramatically expand the number of people who can help cure cancer, the number of people who can help solve climate change, who can be entrepreneurs. If we are able to do that, and if people are able to dramatically improve, you're going to enter into a Star Trek reality. In Star Trek, which is, I think, in the 24th century, there's no scarcity. You want food, you go to the replicator. It'll replicate some food. And so in that type of a world, everyone can essentially operate at the frontiers of science, of arts. Everyone's an explorer, everyone's a researcher, everyone's an artist in the Star Trek reality. And I know that sounds very utopian, and there's a lot of questions between where we are now and how we can get there, but that's at least now, I think, within the potential, within the plausible. And we even all remember when we're in school, one teacher might be an easy grader, another teacher might be a hard grader. One teacher we really connect with, the other teacher we might connect with less. What's interesting about what Khan Academy was trying to do even before AI, and now we're going to be able to do dramatically better with these large language models and other forms of generative AI, is we can give every student that true personalization, give every young Alexander their Aristotle, so to speak, but also do it in a way that is standardized, that if the AI eventually says, hey, this student really knows the material, that everyone can trust that the student really knows the material. I know there's a lot of fears about things like bias with artificial intelligence. It is unlikely to be bias-free. But the thing that has even more bias is human beings. I mean, there's all sorts of studies about whether you're even interviewed in the afternoon versus the morning by the same person, or even in an organization, different people are going to be easy or hard graders. Now you can have a form of consistency with the personalization. So I think there's a massive difference now that we're going to have in standardized assessment, in curricula. All of it's going to be custom, all of it's going to be personalized, but it's going to be standardized in a way that if you get a signal from one part of the world that the AI thinks a student is doing well, that you're going to say, okay, that I can compare that to the AI assessment from someplace else. Traditionally, in a class of 20 or 30 students, there might be 5 or 10 kids who are heavily engaged. The other 5, 10 kids are kind of sitting back and probably aren't getting a lot out of it. Now every student is going to be able to engage and do it in a way that they're not embarrassed, that they're not shy. I think 90% of students are afraid to ask questions. Only 10% are like, teacher, I have a question. Most are like, I don't know, I don't want to. Now every student's going to be able to get their question answered. Wait, why does this make sense? Why does this matter? I think all human beings are curious. And I think that curiosity is sometimes stamped down by the traditional system. Now every student is going to be able to ask questions as they have them. There is no such thing as a dumb question. They're going to be able to draw connections between concepts that they've learned and they haven't learned, and they're going to have better ways to build their content fluency. I think you're going to have just a broadly more curious, more creative, better critical thinkers who also have more subject matter knowledge than a lot of students do today. I think it's easy to get into a doom and gloom fear loop. And I even tell this sometimes to the team at Khan Academy. Yes, there are some risks. We should write them down, but the risks aren't a reason to turn around and run. The risks are a reason, the risks are something to be aware of and then mitigate as we try to move forward. My biggest fear around AI isn't that it's going to get better and better and that it's going to help humanity in a lot of ways, and it might have some edge cases that might hurt. I'm more afraid that places like the US, we pause out of fear, and places like China and Russia, they will not pause because it's strategically important for them. And then we're going to be at a real disadvantage. Then AI becomes really scary for us. The technology is out there and it's getting fast at an accelerating pace. We already see a lot of folks excited about it, and we see a lot of folks afraid of it. And so if we don't act in the right ways, the fear might win. If we don't show how this can be used constructively, how it can help humanity, then people are going to start clamping down on it, because there's also some obvious ways that if it's not done properly, it can also hurt us. And so I think this is a moment where leaders of all ilk need to do their best to say, okay, how do we mitigate the risks and maximize the positives so that we can move forward?